This week on Arizona Illustrated, is learning to live on the moon the key to sustainability on Earth? Celebrating the master of Southwest gardening, George Brookbank, an intimate behind-the-scenes portrait of the Zoppe family circus, and a 1982 tour of a Titan II missile complex from the vault. Welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. Our first story explores how greenhouses built to sustain life on the moon mimic Earth, giving astronauts fresh water, air, and food. They may also offer answers to future challenges right here on Earth. This film is a production of the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences at the University of Arizona.
In the future, we will need to feed more people. The world population is increasing.
The demand for food will be 70% higher than it is now. Even today, close to 1 billion people go hungry every day.
In the meantime, the resources that we have to produce food is decreasing. Water is becoming more limited. Fertilizers becoming more limited.
There are interesting things that can be learned from the space research efforts.
The lunar greenhouse and its closed system is very unique. There's only 1 or 2 universities in the world that are continuing to work on this project.
The lunar greenhouse system is an automated machine, mainly providing food, oxygen, and water for astronauts.
The concepts that are built into that, the biology and the engineering, all of that is being employed here on Earth today to demonstrate how we can solve these problems.
We're faced with a world that is confronted with that issue of sustainability. So how do we then produce enough food, again, for the rising population worldwide in a way that would minimize waste, in a way that would minimize the inputs into it, and that would minimize its dependence on the external environment. I really believe that the space agencies can serve as catalysts in terms of really accelerating the development, the design, not in outer space, but on Earth.
We need very reliable and sustainable systems to keep the space explorers alive. And I think there's an interesting parallel here with now living on Earth. We need to think about sustainable living on Earth as well. We want very efficient electric lighting to grow the plants. We want to recycle all of our water and all of our nutrients, or as much as possible. So we want to close these loops to be very efficient.
There's a lot of satisfaction in organizing groups to reach an end goal. There's a lot of satisfaction there. All we're doing is mimicking what the plant would expect to have if it was on Earth, and taking its byproducts without even telling it, kind of like we do on Earth, and make use of it for life support. The day begins for the plants in the lunar greenhouse by providing energy from the lamps. Just as the sun provides it to the Earth after sunrise, the environment begins to change, the plant responds, it begins growing, and the day has begun. It's us providing them the carbon dioxide, and it's particularly in the lunar greenhouse, and it's the plants providing back the oxygen. The entire system of the lunar greenhouse does represent, in a small way, the biological systems that are here on Earth.
So there are 2 basic cycles that we're looking at in the lunar greenhouse, our water cycle and our atmospheric cycle.
You start with the astronauts, put out carbon dioxide. You introduce it into the greenhouse and the plants convert it to oxygen.
The water cycle begins with fresh water that we either bring with us or discover where we are. From there, that water is then oxygenated and given nutrient salts. That water is then continuously flowing across the root zone of the plants and returned to the system.
We can run it in the makeup water for the plants, which transpire it into the atmosphere of the greenhouse, and then we condense that atmosphere and we get clean water. The crew uses this water for hygiene water, for drinking, and this water, this wastewater is generated, which goes into the composter, and you harvest this gray water from the composter's atmosphere. Roughly a person's weight in hydroponic salts can keep one person alive for a year.
Going beyond the visible range and going inside the plant with the advanced technology, sensing technology, that gives us the power and the tools to better manage that crop and greenhouse system in terms of resource use. So basically the system actually creates a color-coded graphics indicating the stress zone with red color, for example, and indicating the well-watered or non-stress condition with green color before those symptoms and stresses are visible to human eye.
The thing that would excite me the most as a researcher is to see the real functioning biological life support system doing what it's supposed to do. And so I think it's an interesting thing to consider that we're taking our sort of terrestrial companions with us because we need them. We're intricately dependent on them.
What we learn from this controlled environment system will and already is being applied here on Earth, and to produce great food in urban areas or in areas that are not normally thought of as food production areas. In the highly populated regions of the world, it's even more important that recycling is done and resources are used more efficiently. And there may never be an opportunity to go to the traditional outdoor farms. The land may not even be available, or the quality land so that you could farm.
Mega cities that are being created in places like China and India, where this thinking, this philosophy, this technology of an integrated system where the resources are continuously and constantly recycled. Whatever is the waste output from one unit within the system will have to be used as an input into another unit within that system. And it would be in such a way that its food production component is totally self-reliant. That concept of viewing cities more like as a space colony, as a moon base, for instance.
We're finally going back in the right direction, and I think life and society and the world will be better for it.
For more on Earthlight and other stories, visit the Arizona Illustrated page at azpm.org. To become a master gardener, one typically completes intense home horticulture training. That hardly describes the depth of knowledge and experience possessed by the subject of our next story. A gentleman who has certainly mastered gardening in the Southwest, and more importantly, how to spread a love for it to his fellow man, George Brookbank.
Gardening is undergoing a modern-day revival, a nature-based renaissance in our fast-paced world for those who are seeking a closer connection to their food and the soil from which it grows. But there's a person in southern Arizona who has been addressing this subject for decades. Local food, sustainability, and healthier eating habits have been personal passions all of his life, long before the current wave of attention.
Oh my heavens, he's irreplaceable. I would say he's green wisdom, gardening wisdom.
I think he's an incredible treasure. I think he's vastly important to the community.
He's been a dear friend, and has lots of wonderful seeds of kindness that he plants as much as vegetables.
We've been a member of the garden for, 4 or 5 years, and we bought our seeds that long ago. And are they still any good?
Well, I don't know. And you don't know either.
Right.
So you have to find out.
George Brookbank is an admired horticulturist who has been sharing his love of plants and animals since he was a little boy, and he has had that opportunity on 3 different continents.
Good luck.
Born in England in 1925, Brookbank moved to East Africa after high school. For 11 years, he lived in what is now Tanzania, where he worked with local populations on growing crops and raising animals that could provide sustenance and cash.
I joined the Colonial Agricultural Service, and that got me a passage to one of the colonies.
After his time in Africa, he traveled west to California with his American wife.
And I got a master's degree in horticulture. And when I had that, I felt I was qualified to apply for a salaried position.
He was hired in Yuma, Arizona, but he moved again in 1972. He accepted a position in urban horticulture with the University of Arizona's Extension Service. Nearly 2 decades later, Brookbank and other committed residents established Community Gardens of Tucson. These urban plots provide a green oasis where participants can get close to nature and reap the fruits of their labor.
The first one was on First Avenue, which now houses Sprouts and LA Fitness. Our plots were right under there, and that was in 1990, and then it grew one by one as people paid dues in that when we had enough money to open another and another and another.
I would like to say that we formed a good partnership and we achieved our objective in helping people become more self-sufficient, growing food, and I feel good about that.
Here is a nice little plant. It's unusual. It's a native plant, and it's drought tolerant.
Throughout the years, Brookbank has kept a steady presence in southern Arizona. He has used the power of television and other media to educate and inspire, addressing topics in a friendly fashion for amateurs and experts alike.
And that's where the papaya fruit sits. Papayas are male or female plants, and we don't have any males, unfortunately, so perhaps nothing will happen here.
Brookbank is also the author of several books and many articles about gardening in the desert.
He's an educator first, a good listener and a good teacher.
Funny enough, I have a colleague that just moved here from Tennessee, and I was updating my address book, and I said, "What's your address?" He said, "Oh, it's on George Brookbank Drive in Vail." I said, "That name sounds awfully familiar." So I guess George is a little bit more of a celebrity than we really knew.
I can remember having a garden when I was little, and my sisters had gardens. Every house we were in a garden. Always been involved in animals and gardening.
Although he retired in the 1990s, George Brookbank continues to make the rounds, where he cultivates the gardening culture.
And he even now still goes to some of the community gardens on their monthly meetings and offers his wisdom and his good cheer, and he's a wonderful, wonderful man.
George, I just found a bright yellow grasshopper on my corn. Should I worry or should I just leave it alone?
I think what you should do is to pick it off with your finger and thumb. Put it on the ground and jump on it.
That's what I was afraid of.
He's taught a lot of people about gardening, but I'm a terrible gardener, so I thought bees would be a better place for us to connect.
It's a nice full thing.
Oh, good.
That one looks really good.
He is incredibly knowledgeable. He's probably the kindest person I know. He's a very generous man. with his knowledge, and he'll give you the shirt off his back, actually. It wouldn't fit, but, you know, he would do it.
Despite his many achievements and accolades, Brookbank remains humble and philosophical. He says he's been inspired by watching the rewarding interactions between nature and people.
I just think that I am doing something worthwhile, and people think I'm doing it worthwhile, and that gives me safe satisfaction. And I just like looking back on seeing the progress that I and they have done.
By the way, George turns 90 years old this month. Happy birthday, George. In 1842, a French street performer named Napoleon Zoppe fell in love with an equestrian ballerina and founded the circus that still bears their name. Handed down from generation to generation, the Zoppe family circus continues to entertain and amaze audiences around the world. We offer an intimate behind-the-scenes portrait of this unique one-ring circus.
Well, I believe it's important for him to know what this life is because it's been my life since I was born. I cherish it like nothing else, like it's the most important thing in my life. My name is Giovanni Zoppe, and I'm the guy
He's the guy that books the dates, organizes transportation, and handles the business affairs. It's a 20-week tour, and Tucson is the last stop.
Let's go, guys!
But more importantly,
My name is Giovanni Zoppe. I play Nino the Clown.
along with playing Nino the Clown, Giovanni Zoppe is now the patriarch of the Zoppe family circus.
What? I'm the patriarch? Whenever the press calls me that, I just feel very antiquated. It's definitely a compliment.
He's not completely comfortable with the concept, since the role of patriarch is relatively new. His father, Alberto, passed away in March of 2009.
He is still definitely the patriarch of my family circus. Every show we reflect on him, and every show we look back and see that chair sitting back behind me.
During each show, his father's chair sits empty by the curtain entrance.
And just know his inspiration is there. The reason why we're doing this is because of him. And the chair has been there every day, every single moment since the day he passed away.
While Giovanni credits his father with being the inspiration and the essence of the show, he also appreciates the way his father taught him about circus.
That was one of the great things about my father. He let me figure it out for myself. He only told me stories about himself growing up and about what he experienced. He was a great clown, my father. When you grow up in a circus family, a true circus family, you are all clowns. It's commedia.
The Zoppe circus began in 1842 when a French street performer named Napoleon Zoppe fell in love with an equestrian ballerina. The pair founded the circus that still bears their name.
This is the backyard of our lot. The whole area within our RVs and our front fence is our lot. We're standing next to my trailer, which is right beside of our tent. We don't work here, we live here. This is our home. The trailers aren't parked in a circle by accident. They're parked here as a community. This is our own community here. I could depend on anybody on that side of the lot, and they could depend on me.
These are just a few of the faces that make up the Zoppe circus. Giovanni's sister, Tosca Zoppe, is the equestrian ballerina. Her husband, Jay, plays the boss clown. Ariel Abasher, the wire dancer. Rudolph Heinen, the dog trainer. Nate Cyril, juggler. And Giovanni's mother, Sandra Zoppe.
Like any family, it's not all roses. I mean, there's issues every day. Every day is something else. Somebody's messing up, in my opinion. But in their opinion, I'm messing up. It's a family. So
Not all are related by blood, but certainly by this shared experience. Giovanni Zoppe represents the 6th generation of this circus family. His son Julian is the 7th.
To raise a child here, no matter what town we're in, around the country, that's where he wakes up, on the side of his tent. He wakes up and he knows where he's at. His backyard is different, but his place is the same.
For this circle to continue, new generations must learn the ways of the Zoppe Circus.
Here we wake up and we're with our children all day long. Our children are part of our life, continually. And they get up in the morning and the first thing they do, they start playing with juggling clubs or walking on little wires or doing tumbling, or that's their games, that's they play. They play like children play.
Adrian Poema Jr. is an 8th generation circus performer.
And I do juggling, I do tumbling, trampoline, Russian swing, a lot of acrobatics. What I like the most about working in the circus is be able to perform for the people, because when they leave the tent, those people will remember the show for the rest of their lives.
Adrian's older sisters, Catherine and Mariana, are in their trailer preparing for the show. Everyone on the lot is getting ready.
It's between shows right now. We're gonna get a little rain, but no big deal. It's gonna go. We're trying to run to start the new show. We have a pre-show starting in less than 5 minutes now. Before our show starts, all of our artists are in front of our tent, greeting our audience, meeting them, saying hello, how are we doing? Thank you for coming to the show.
So please, don't tell anybody about it.
Just speaking to them as human beings, not as this plastic character on a stage or in a ring 100 feet away that you can't even touch. That brings the personal feeling, I think, to what we do. We want to feel it as much as the audience would feel it.
Giovanni believes that this intimate connection with the audience also strengthens the bond between the performers.
We become one unit, these 28 people that are on this lot today. We're one family unit that travels from town to town together, and it just, the family bond between us grows stronger and stronger with each mile we drive.
It's time for the main event, and now Giovanni must become Nino the Clown. His son Julian and wife Amy join him in the trailer to prepare. It's another chance to teach the next generation, in this case, how to create the face of a clown.
Mama.
Giovanni welcomes the transformation.
Well, I know my character, Nino, is basically me, but he's a kid. A big kid, just wanting to be part of it all. If it was up to me, I'd be Nino all the time. But I can't. So I have to become Giovanni again.
You have a red tie, Amy?
His wife Amy has her preference as well.
I think she probably has a better time dealing with Nino than Giovanni. I think she'd rather live with Nino than Giovanni.
Let's give him a great big welcome.
Giovanni's mother, Sandra Zoppe, introduces the show, sharing the history of this Italian family circus. And then it begins.
En 5 minutos comenzamos. Por favor, todos preparados.
I know we are doing something here. What it is, I'm not sure. But that's what I hope people get when they leave here. I hope they get the feeling that we welcome them here, we want them to come. It's about family, it's about joy, it's about celebration, and it's about circus above all.
For Giovanni, who he shares this circus life with is just as important as the circus itself.
With my wife and my children and my son, but also with my mother and with my father till he passed away, and with my sisters and with my brother-in-laws. I mean, I'm 45 years old and I'm still living home, and I have no regrets. Very happy because of that.
As for the next generation, Julian will continue to learn from his father, and maybe someday share this circus life with his own son.
I want him to grow up in this life and understand what it is, but in saying that, I also want him to have his opportunity. I want him to choose his own pathway, whatever his pathway is.
For more than 2 decades, 54 Titan II missile complexes across the United States stood on alert 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And several of those silos were right outside of Tucson. The Titan II could launch in 58 seconds and hit targets more than 5,500 miles away in less than 30 minutes. But by the early 80s, cost concerns and a change of strategy spelled the beginning of the end of the Titan era, but not before we filmed a final tour in 1982.
Of the 18 Titan sites around Tucson, 11 are in Pima County, 4 in Pinal, 2 in Cochise, and 1 in Santa Cruz. The Tubac site, which we visited, is one of 2 without a missile. Most of the Titan complex is underground, the control center on the left 60 feet down, an entryway in the middle, and the missile silo to the right. The complex is serious business. It is also home to a 4-man crew. Crews live at the site for 24 hours, then are replaced on a rotating basis. The compact control room is the brains of the operation, according to the crew commander. On this day, all was calm, but many reporters wanted to know what the room would look like if the missile were about to be launched.
On lawful command from the president, we get a message, we get our keys, the keys go in these key switches. You notice that they're sealed. The keys are maintained in the red safe over here. What would happen is a key goes in there, a key in here, the lawful order would come in. We would get a D code to unlock a little box out on the missile, and we would dial that code in up there in that rack. At that point, we would turn our keys, the 2 officers would turn their keys, and the missile would go. It's 1 minute from the time you turn keys, the sortie is gone.
If it were here, the missile would be 103 feet tall, 10 feet in diameter. If it were about to be launched, the 740-ton protective cover would swing open in 15 seconds. In less than a minute, the 2-stage rocket would generate 530,000 pounds of thrust. The missile would travel at 15,000 miles per hour with a range of 5,000 miles. Such a launch will not happen here. This missile is gone. The remaining 16 sites will be deactivated over the next 2 years. The missile north of Green Valley is next in line. The future use of the sites is still uncertain.